Hey YouTube, it's the 40 Watt Garage. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back. Today's installment is going to be the permanent installation of the ferrules in the top of the driver's door, and then moving everything over and drilling, tapping, and installing the ferrules on the passenger door, then dropping the window inserts into place, measuring, checking, and trimming the forward edge rubber gaskets on each side. And that should complete the installation of the window inserts. One of the last steps is to permanently install the ferrules into the tops of your doors. I've got my little cardboard model here, kind of a cross section of the door. And what they want you to do is thread your ferrule in, and then you take a number 7 drill bit down through the hole in the bottom of the ferrule. You're going to punch through the inner skin of the door, and then you take a 1/4-20 tap, run that through, and then you're going to be cutting threads in that lower skin of the door. And then when that's done, you take one of the supplied Allen head set screws, run that down until it just pokes out the bottom of your door skin. This is exaggerated, but it's going to poke out just a little bit. And what that achieves is it locks this ferrule top and bottom. You can't, like on the main hoop, you can't put a flat washer and thread a big nut on there. So they've come up with this way to stabilize and lock this ferrule in place, so it's not torquing on your bodywork and potentially spidering the fiberglass or cracking your paint. One thing I discovered though is, as I said earlier, I don't trust a lot of things. I'm sure that during manufacturing of these parts, there might be a little burr or a little booger inside those 1/4-20 threads, and my number 7 drill bit won't go through. And what could potentially happen is I've got this threaded down into the door. I take my drill, power it in, it grabs the ferrule and spins the ferrule and potentially stripping out my threads in the fiberglass. So I'm going to take all 4 ferrules and run this drill bit into them and clean up that hole on the bench, and then we go over to the car. Did a little research, and I guess Loctite will work on fiberglass. You'd think that its porosity would be a problem, but I guess it's not. So I've applied a bit onto this bolt below where it's going to register. So hopefully as I'm screwing it in, it will carry some of that liquid up the threads and where it needs to be. So we're going to thread this in for good. Got a little squeeze out happening here. Wipe that up. And get that in as tight as I can, finger tight. Now the trick is going to be to get the bolt out without loosening the ferrule. And what I have found is if you grip the ferrule, I got to get my hands in the way, I'm sorry, and put a little side pressure on the bolt and loosen it, it will come out of the ferrule and not loosen the ferrule in the door. Okay, now we're going to drill through that 1/4-20 hole in the bottom. Light isn't very good, but that is where it broke out in the bottom of the door. You can see how close we were to that side edge there. There's a little bit of blowout. It's to be expected, drilling from the inside out. So I'm going to use the countersink tool, do a little twirl, clean that up a bit. Now we've got the 1/4-20 tap. I'm going to set it in there. Get it started in the existing threads. You don't want to cross thread it. It should just, I'm barely using my fingertips. And it's important to do this through the top like this, because there may be a little air gap between the bottom of the ferrule and where the fiberglass starts. And this will keep the threads, call it synchronized, so that your set screw will just continue down through the air gap and into the fiberglass. And I can feel it was just starting to cut full threads when I ran out of tap. And I've got my set screw, and I am going to put some Loctite on this as well. Not much, but so when I thread it into the stainless and then into the fiberglass, it should stay put. Put my finger on the inside. And when I just feel the tip of it coming through, maybe give it another full turn, and then stop. put some delicate surface low-tack tape down on the body in the area of the windshield frame, because I'm going to be pushing and pulling and potentially trimming. I don't want to scratch the paint in this area. And I've got my little nylon wedge and a carpenter pencil. And what I'm hoping to do is figure out a way to get this tail of this rubber gasket to seat down and in. I can push it down and in to that gap and seal it up pretty nicely. But what to do with this tail end to cut and trim it so it'll fit in like that. This is where my dyslexia thing, being able to flip and visualize things in my mind, starts to be my detriment. So you can always trim more off, but you can't add it back on. So we're just going to take off small bits and figure out a way to trim this. I think what it's going to wind up being maybe is a V cut, or what's going to look like a V cut, like this. So we'll just start small and nibble our way up to making it fit. But I know that to have it reach down and touch the body, it needs to be at least that long. So I'm going to mark it long once I resharpen my pencil. Well, I'm pretty firmly convinced there is not a hell of a lot you can do with this corner. It just, with this pre-bent, pre-made fold in it, it just does not want to tuck in very well, regardless of what you do. So I am just going to trim it to where it sits in there. And that's just how it's going to have to be. At this stage of the game, I'm kind of convinced that this forward gasket, you kind of get what you get. It, with that preformed shape, it doesn't want to conform to other shapes. There's quite a bit of extra, which is a good thing. But I believe I'm just going to trim it off a little over flush with the top edge of my window insert, and call that good. I'm going to call that good.